Welcome to today's webinar, Annual Report Sections E through G. This is a live webinar recording, and the presenter today is Bobbie Augspurger, KDLA's State Data Coordinator. As well, Wendy O'Connor is joining Bobbie as KDLA's Southeast Regional Consultant. So welcome, Bobbie. And before she takes over, I just want to mention that we want to acknowledge the Institute of Museum and Library Services and thank them for their sponsorship of KDLA. I will pull up Bobbie's slides and she can take it away.
So good afternoon. It is a lovely day out after all of our crazy weather, and I was told here in Kentucky that we are going to have another short spurt of coldness. So let's get out and enjoy that nice while we can, I guess. Wanted to definitely share out the annual report sections through G, our webinar series. We're going to make it through all the way through the reporting. Plenty of time for everyone to get started on their statistics and have a good idea as to what is being collected and why it's collected. So our annual report data is collected at the state level for each library, and then I take all of your information and I put it together and submit it to the federal level, which is required. And then, so what you guys go through, I go through the same thing on the federal level. So just a heads up there, and then we use the cleaned information to create our statistics report for Kentucky, and this is used to lobby for money, and information. So let's go ahead and dig in. Wendy is with us today, our regional consultant, and she is going to definitely help ad-lib and answer questions. And if I've missed anything or if there's any comments or questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. So here we go. Sections E through G, a quick review on the access points before we pop into E. This is the same information that was presented in that first webinar, A through C. And so if you do not have your collect or connect username password, get with me and I can get that to you. If there is not one available, we'll get one assigned. So I will work through that process. You just need to let me know. We will open the reporting app here in a few months, and it'll open up July 1st and close at the end of August. So navigating, there's a lot of buttons available, and these are the ones located at the top of your screen. Quick review, next means go to the next page, previous, go to the previous page, and save. You're going to want to save often. The system will time out after work delays, and so you may need to log back in to make sure your work is really being saved. And that was an issue last year. Also, I would recommend where it says hide last year's answers, I would recommend seeing last year's answers. This gives you a temperature check to see if you need to add a note or some kind of explanation, or even double check your data. The flags under each item, there's a little flag option. Let me see if I have my little pointer here. There we go. The flag option, you can flag it yourself if you have a question, if the regional has a question to indicate, hey, I got to pick up here. So that flag is for you to use. Think of the notes as a GIF. Each survey question has a note feature. And so if there's a discrepancy or a change, I need to know why the number is so much bigger or smaller and what specifically caused that number to change from last fiscal year, because that's what I have to answer at the federal level. Error reports. When the library submits, you're going to get some error reports. You get error reports, and just because you don't get one on the annual report doesn't mean I won't get one, because at the federal level, they like to do ratios. Is it within ratio? Is there a certain amount? And so I will get all kinds of error reports that I have to answer. So your notes are seriously a gift to you, because 3 or 4 months, 6 months later, you may not remember why that number was different. And I definitely won't know. So I'll have to get with you and check that out. Also new that with the update this last year is a history button, and it lets you see about 5 years of the previous year's data, so you can see if you're on track, if you're in the range. All right, then we have the status. It shows if there's any answered questions. If there's at the very top, the status button, it shows if there's any edit checks that need to be fixed or explained, any flag questions. You can export your annual report data. A lot of times I will see a PDF, and that is the export of this data that you've put in that you submit to your board when you get your authorization signature saying, yep, this is our data, this is what we're saying is right. You can also print, so you can print previous years, you can print, sorry, I'm tongue twister here, I've got to put my teeth back in. Print current year, previous year, you can include annotations, you can include the previous year's data, all kinds of print options available to you. If you click on the survey list at the top in that blue bar, the survey list here provides all of the report survey links for your library. When you're done with all of your data and you've saved it, everything's clean, you've got notes, all the error reports are fixed, you want to submit the data. When you submit, then the regional will come in and look at it, see if there's any questions. When that's done, then it's closed out, and that's when I start working my magic. Alrighty, if you hit close, it's going to close. The top right-hand corner, you've got a close button. This will close your survey window. It will not automatically save, so pretty please save it. Those of us that work in Google a lot, we're used to it auto-saving. This does not have the auto-save feature, so heads up there. All right, navigation. Any questions so far? I don't see any hands waving or questions in the chat bar. Wendy, is there anything you would like to add on the navigation area? Or Chris?
Nope.
All right, let's dig into the meat then. Section E is our branch libraries. If you remember from the first part of the survey, there are several menu options. Your survey navigation on the left-hand side of your Collect Connect portal. And so when you click on Section E, your branch libraries will show up. The branch name comes first, street address, the city, and zip code. When we're looking at the street address here, it really wants the physical address, even if you don't receive mail there. No post office boxes, or I have to go back in and fix that later. And then your phone number. That is the telephone number of the branch. If this is the same phone number as your main library, there may pop up a duplication error. So you could always add right down here a note, the same phone number, but it's an extension off of, or, you know, however it works. So that way there's an explanation if it is the same number for some reason. Okay, next we have square footage. The square footage is all of that area enclosed by the outer walls. It includes the bathroom. It includes your workrooms. It includes all of the off limits to the public space as well. So that's your square footage. Number of meeting held. Do not include the use of the room for library programs or services or other use by library boards or staff. So we want number of meetings, which means our public use of number of meetings, not the program staff. Then we have our library visits. It's a typical week. You can count it exactly or do an estimate. So if you're going to do an estimate, you want to choose weeks in which the library is open its regular hours and not when it's going to be super busy, like a certain holiday or event, or you know, oh my gosh, I'm going to have lots and lots of people. That's not a typical week. You want to choose a couple of typical weeks. And most of my libraries choose one in the spring, one in the fall. And then the current registered users is a separate statistic for each branch. If you have not purged your files within the past 3 years or gotten rid of those extra numbers that, you know, people are 150 years old and they never come in, at least not since you've been there, it's time to archive or purge those. Also, you want to know or realize that your registered users could include people from outside of your district. If they pay a membership card fee, registered users are those people that have cards and access to your library. So those digital access cards are included as well. So it may not just be people in your town. It may be people from outside of your town if you do offer a card to them as well. Hopping right along, we have the number of uses, sessions of public internet computers per year. And so a typical week, you can get the estimate just the same as your population estimate or count estimates. So you don't want to include the Wi-Fi access using non-library computers. Like someone comes in with their cell phone and they hit on your internet, you're not going to include that. You're just going to include the sessions of the internet computers. I've had to go back and ask people, okay, you have 150,000 hits difference. Why the difference between last year and this year? Oh, I accidentally included internet link ups instead of public internet computers use. So definitely want to be aware that there's that fine tuning there that may need to happen in your numbers. Then we get to reference transactions. We did have our regional Amber put on recognizing reference questions in a 21st Century Library webinar a few months ago. So if you're not familiar with what a reference transaction looks like, definitely want to go back and check those results, that information, those share outs in that webinar. And hopping right along, we have the same as with our main library. We're going to have to track the main library, each branch library, and our bookmobiles, the hours that are open. So hours open on your branch library will opening time, closing time, and then hours open for each day of the week. And you can see, oh my gosh, just suffer through until we can see about maybe getting that changed and just having hours each day. That's my hope. You definitely have to fill out all of this so far. If you've changed from one year to the next, you didn't used to be open Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, and now you're open Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, make a quick little note. We opened because we had extended, we were able to hire another person. We extended hours because of certain community needs. Once you get your first branch done, if you have a brand new branch, you want to add your group right down here. All you have to do is click on that. If your library has a branch and you've never had a branch before, you may need to get a hold of me so that I can have Section E put into your annual report so it starts showing up. Hey, for your branch, let me see. A definition of a branch, and let me pop back just a couple slides. I'm not trying to give you vertigo. I do want to point out that a branch has all of these items here. So it has separate quarters. It could be across the street. It could be down the road. It could be across town. It could be in another town. It has separate quarters. It has an organized collection of library materials. It has paid staff and regularly scheduled hours for being open to the public. In order for your library branch to be categorized as a branch, it must have all four of these. Okay. I had a question about, I have a bookmobile and it's stationary and we're using it as a branch. If it has wheels, we're keeping it as a bookmobile. Let's go ahead and pop forward. All right, back to this slide here. So as you see here on E17, total hours branches are open. It sums it. Just take a gander and make sure like it's adding up correctly. Sometimes there's a glitch in the system and these auto sums don't add up correctly. Just like the number of weeks libraries are open. If you have multiple branches, it may say 104 if they're both open 52 weeks of a year. So note that it could be more than 52 here. Number of branches should show up how many branches you have. And so it's going to take all of these hours and these weeks and your annual hours open. If you don't have hours open, don't put letters in, just put zeros. Alrighty, so here we are at questions that were encountered last year. We opened the branch on March 4th. Does a branch section need to be added to our annual report, or should I just include a description in the notes in the S section? Even if it opens March 4th, which is just a few months in the end of the fiscal year, it does need to be added as a new branch section. And so if you don't have a branch, let me know that you need section E and I'll get that turned on. Had almost completed the annual report and noticed that previously input information for X and X branches are no longer there. It's not that the fields are empty, those branches just disappeared. Let me know. I will reach out to Baker and Taylor and we will get to work on that information showing again or restored if it needs to happen. I can't guarantee everything, but definitely give the best try to get information stored, and Baker and Taylor is usually pretty good about being able to find out what happens. Branch versus self-serve model. Does XX meet the branch requirements? Remember, those 4 branch requirements are needed. You have to have separate quarters, an organized collection, paid staff, and regularly scheduled hours, and then you can count it as a branch. All information reported should represent only that branch and not include the main library data. So your main library collects how many visitors you have, your branch collects how many visitors that certain location has. You don't want to combine them because then you're getting a false high number. You want each location to track just that location information. How are we doing so far? Got a thumbs up out there? Throw me a wave. See if there's any questions. Okay, I've got some thumbs up. Excellent. All right, so it looks like we have the section F next. Are there any questions or comments from our regionals on with us today?
Nope.
Okie dokie, we will keep going. And I see in the comments that Tricia shared my email. It's bobbie.augspoker. So definitely want to add the IE onto Bob. No worries. All right, let's go on over to section F. Look at us, we're just cruising right through this. And somehow I've got my cord wrapped around. So if you hear me trying to untangle myself, I've been strapped to the audio computer here. All right, section F is an outreach vehicle. An outreach vehicle is used to provide personalized library services to individuals and groups at remote locations. The difference between an outreach vehicle and a bookmobile is the bookmobile has an organized collection. So the staff may pick up and deliver materials for patrons. They may take a box of books to the rest home, or a carton of books and program information to a daycare. This would be an example of outreach. The vehicle, tracking the vehicle, in the past you may have used a personal vehicle. We are not going to track personal vehicles. So we are tracking outreach vehicles owned by your local entity or the state. And you definitely want to keep a record of the number of stops this outreach vehicle makes in a typical week. If you do not have information here, it could be that the numbers are program numbers, and that's going to go in section O or or key with your program. If you need to add a vehicle, it's real easy. Just go here to the bottom and click Add Group. And if the vehicle was in a car crash or sold or no longer useful, you want to keep that vehicle on here if there's any of these outreach statistics during the fiscal year. The following year, when you know that that vehicle will not ever be used from July 1st to June 30th, then you'll remove it. But do not remove that vehicle until you've counted every single stop and every potential use during the fiscal year. Okay. So a couple of questions. We use our Bookmobile to also do outreach activities. How do I count these? You do not duplicate your outreach vehicle activities with Bookmobile transactions. These only count once. The vehicle can only count once. The actions and activities can only count once. And so you definitely do not want to duplicate, whether it's a program, whether it's an outreach, or whether it's a Bookmobile. That only counts one time. Let's see. Our librarian uses her own personal vehicle for outreach. Can we count that vehicle in section F? In the past, you may have counted personal vehicle outreach vehicles. Moving forward, count only vehicles owned by your local entity or the state, not an individual. So like I said, if they do a lot of outreach, it may end up being in your program numbers if it's a personal vehicle. You're not going to count that. We acquired an outreach vehicle in April of 2024. Does the outreach vehicle section need to be added to our 23-24 annual report, or should I just include notes in the S section? You will need to add a new outreach vehicle section because April 1st falls in that 23-24 fiscal year. We want to count all of the stops, even if it's not an entire year worth of stops. We want to count all of that hard work that your outreach people do. Questions so far in F? Does this include a library vehicle that is used for staff to attend meetings, conference, transporting items to set up at school events? So the outreach, the transporting items to set up at school events, if it's not in your program numbers, then definitely include it here. Yes. See back here on the stops and outreach vehicle makes, we're not going to include attending meeting stops. That's not outreach, that's a conference, that's professional development. If they are stopping by at the VA and dropping off books, then that would count because they're stopping and dropping off books, which is an outreach activity. Does that help clarify? Any other questions for section F? F for fantastically short, right? All right, let's go ahead and head on over to section G. A bookmobile is a traveling branch library, so it has wheels. It consists of at least all of the following: a truck or van that carries an organized collection of library materials. It has paid staff, and it has regularly scheduled hours. Bookmobile stops for being open to the public. So you will enter the license number. Remember, it only counts once. The vehicle, make, model, and then the owner of the vehicle. So is that state or a local entity? Then we hop on over to visits. So this is the total number of people entering the bookmobile. If they visit the bookmobile, enter the bookmobile versus crawling inside of it. If it has a collection, that's the same essential thing. So if an actual count of visits is unavailable, then you're going to do an estimate of a typical week. You don't want to do holidays. You don't want to do vacation periods or when unusual events are taking place. So choose a couple of weeks and then include 7 consecutive calendar days from Sunday through Saturday, and then add it to get your average. Okay, so you may want to do in the spring and the fall because you know your kids are typically in school, and those are good times of the year to do an average count, and then see what your average week looks like. Enter the number of current registered users if your bookmobile has separate statistics kept. Some of the bookmobiles do not have separate statistics counted. They're counted at the branch level or the main library level. And so then you put a 0 in there. So you don't want to duplicate your registered users. If you have them counted at the branch or the main library, then you don't want to also count them in the bookmobile. That gives a false high number there. Again, your files on registered users need to be purged within the past 3 years. Get rid of those people that are never there, haven't been there within 3 years to 5 years. You want to include the count of digital access cards if that's an available thing. And also remember, just like with your branches, the count may include people that don't live in that town but do have a library card. And then we have number of uses sessions of the library's internet computers in the library during the last year for bookmobiles. And it gives a nice definition. We talked about this at your branch. Some of the bookmobiles do have Wi-Fi, and some people come and take advantage of that Wi-Fi in order to get on computers and do some work. So each bookmobile is just like a branch in that you're all going to have different elements, different collections, different programs, and so the survey is very comprehensive and includes these questions for conversation and data collection. All right. Then we hop on over to reference transactions. Don't forget to catch Amber's web event that's recorded if you're not familiar with reference transactions. Hours on the road per week, but not serving patrons. This means how many hours is that bookmobile driving? You're not helping people, you're driving. You're sitting at a stoplight. What's your average hours per week where you're driving to the location, from another location? That's what's needed in G9. And you can do an annual count or an estimate, which we talked about earlier. And then we move on to actual hours that's open. Sunday daily hours open. If you're not open Sunday, put 0. I've had people put in NA and then I have to go back into the report and change that. So if you're not open Sunday, just stick a 0 in there and call it happy. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday through Saturday. How many hours are you open? So you have driven from point A to point B and now you're open for an hour. And then you go from point A or point B to point C and you're open for another hour. The driving time is one statistic. The open time is another statistic. So based on this example, you have 1 hour plus 1 hour, so you would put in 2 hours open to the public. And then you would have your drive time separately. Does that help clarify? Okay. And then the number of weeks your bookmobile is open. If your bookmobile is closed for Christmas week and New Year's week and Easter week, well, then there's 3 weeks you take off and you're down to 49 weeks right there. So it may be closed because of maintenance. You may not be out on the bookmobile route because you had to take it in for maintenance, or it got hit by a tree because of a natural disaster. So definitely want to put the accurate number of weeks that bookmobile is open. You want to round up to the next week if it's a partial week. So it was open 42 and a half weeks, just call it 43 weeks. If it was open 42 weeks and 2 days, round it down to be 2 weeks. Okay, we don't need decimals, we just round up or round down. Then we look at G9.3a, and it's going to total up the number of weeks your bookmobiles are open. So if you have more than one bookmobile, it may be more than 52. Okay. Then G10, it's going to total up your hours in an average week that the bookmobile is open. These are sums, just take a glance and double check that it looks like it's in the right realm of hours. And sometimes these auto sum up and I get this crazy duplication error, and that has to be fixed by Baker and Taylor on the backside. So if it looks like, oh my gosh, that's an extra 50 hours, let me know and I will get with them to get that fixed, and they can fix the glitch or programming on the backside so that it's totaling up correctly. And then of course your total number of bookmobiles. Okay, what does it mean by registered users? That's card holders. It's not the same as your county population. You should have fewer registered users than you have people in your county. Typically that's how it works. The instructions state that registered users need to be updated at minimum every 3 years, which means deleting or archiving those unused old accounts in your systems. It may include people living outside the county have purchased your library card. Question, we use our bookmobile to also do outreach activities. How do I count these? You do not duplicate your outreach vehicle and bookmobile. The vehicle will only count in one location, and so all that data is in one location. So I would include that information in your bookmobile, and you may be looking at some of that outreach work as a program, and that may be where you need to include that those statistics. We acquired a new bookmobile on March 1st, 2024. Does a bookmobile section need to be added to our 23-24 annual report? Yes. March 1st is several months before the end of fiscal year 24, so you will need to include a new group and add that bookmobile information. Yes, it will be open fewer weeks. That's expected with a new one or one bookmobile that's been off the road for maintenance or other reasons. And not every bookmobile is going to be out there 52 weeks anyway. So definitely want to represent each bookmobile. Even if you retire one bookmobile and open or buy a new one, then you're going to have two. The one that gets retired statistics and the new one statistics. Then whenever there are no statistics left, then you will take the bookmobile off the following year. Okay, questions so far on G? We're still alive out there? All right, let's go ahead and see if there's any other questions for this one. We are rocking it. Look at that, 2:37. We are cranking it right along. So we do have another upcoming webinar in April, sections H through J. And if you guys have any questions or need anything, please check with your regional consultant or email me. And I guess we will see you all in April. Have a great afternoon.
All right, thank you, Bobbie. And we'll stop the recording, but we'll stay on for a couple of